Hello, hello, hello. Oh boy. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hear myself twice. Don't want that. Hey, Moogle. Apologies. I forgot to set one last thing up. I swear one of these days I will become a good streamer and I will remember to do this shit ahead of time. But today is not that day. It might not be tomorrow. It might not be Wednesday. But one day, I'll remember to do some of this shit beforehand. But how is your day going, Moogle? I hope everything is going well. Okay, that's in. That's connected. These now to continue to connect. That's connected. That's connected. All right, and then moopies. And then boop. And where's my last thing? I need my. Oh, I don't know how I'm doing it. It's too early to tell. The work never ends. I'm slowly losing my mind, and well, that's all par for the course, to be honest. What happened to it? I had a special glove that I was supposed to wear when I use this, so that way I don't scuff shit up. Where'd my glove go? Why am I sounding like fucking Kermit? It's one of these moments that I curse the past me with a heated tongue for all of his inepts and failures, to where I'm going to use the backup one that I have, like, kept in its bag for this entire time. Didn't want to use my backup one. But, here we go. Fits smooth like a glove, because it is. It's a new glove. But yes, Moogle, I saw something about your game, the demo at least, got an update recently, or is getting an update. So I'm looking forward to that. But also, your game is coming up soon, the Soul Survivor one. Let's see, open recent. Oh, I didn't see it there. Alright, there we go. Priata. Move you here. Move you here. Alright, this should. So, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, those who are in between and outside of that spectrum, welcome, welcome. My name is Ian, the Part-Time Experience. I am doing another DevTalk today. I'm talking about, you know what actually might help? You guys could see what the fuck I'm talking about. Oh god, that is way too large. But yes. Welcome to the DevTalk, Relationship Mechanics, Thou Art Maidenless. That's right, I know about all of you. Bunch of maidenless curs. Thou has no one to hold thy mortal hand. No, I joke. So this is about the relationship mechanics in RPGs in general, or video games in general. So, as mentioned previously, I'm going to be doing a lot of different dev talks where the key focus is going to be essentially talking about different mechanics that you see not only in RPGs but in video games in general, and essentially how there are different examples of them, as well as how we can see about trying to make them better as we overall try and aim towards. I'm just going to turn down the music just a smidge. Aim towards the idea of, hey, let's have better games in the hobby scene and in the indie or solo dev scene. Because let's face it, there's a lot of games out there that are not very well done. And first of all, the first note, as always, is going to be, not all games need this, and not all players are going to enjoy this. But that's the same for any mechanic. Regardless of what mechanic that you are going to put into your game, it's always, always, always important to note that it may or may not be important or relevant to your players. And that's as simple as it is. You can't please everybody, but you can at least do a good job to where you can try and maximize the amount of people who play and enjoy your game. So keep that in mind. But yeah, not all games need this, and not all players will enjoy this. That's going to be a running theme throughout all of these dev talks. This is just the first one that we're running into, or that we're covering, which is the relationship mechanics, and there are plenty of others that we are going to cover. I may do them solo here, or I may do them over with the RTP people, because both Sai and D7 have expressed interest in doing dev talks as well, and I'm more than happy to co-host with them and do essentially the same format with them. But as far as this one goes, so I remember one of the, hey Plexi, welcome, we're just getting started. It's actually, if I recall correctly, something you had stated when I was first researching on all of the different mechanics to talk about. For the relationship ones, it was the idea that relationships in video games, or any kind of building upon them, felt very transactional. And I do kind of agree with you, but at the same time, the cynic in me says all relationships are transactional, because you're spending time with them, you're doing favors, you're giving gifts, so on and so forth. It's purely how it's presented and whether or not you find it enjoyable enough that you disregard this feeling. And again, that is the cynical part of me that says this. But that being said, there are multiple kinds of relationship systems out there. Some are more enjoyable than others, and I want to participate actively in this. Hey, the Asamu, welcome. Yes, I will also put out anytime that anyone in the chat, if you guys have any comments that you want to pass on, any questions or anything like that, feel free, because, like I said, this is all about improving the hobby and improving the scene for everyone, regardless of whether you starting out as an indie dev or you've been doing this for years. What we want is to try and get this, essentially this scene, not only for the RPG Maker stuff, which is still my primary focus, but also others of like, hey, let's just make some good games. Let's show why we're passionate and how we can make things better. So, what was I saying? Alright, there are multiple kinds of relationship systems out there, some like Stardew Valley, and those ones are more like gift giving, certain dialogue options that increase your relationship points, and have certain scenes acting as checkpoints to determine if your relationship with that character progresses or not. So we're going to start with that. Stardew Valley. Fuck you, Haley. As you see, there is a checkpoint system of sorts. It monitors how many hearts or relationship points, they call it friendship points in the game, that you have with each character. And as the game progresses, or as you increase those, you do get new dialogues, and sometimes you get gifts from them, but the whole system itself is based upon dialogue and gifts, as in dialogue choices that you make with that character and what gifts that you give that character, because certain dialogues or certain gifts will decrease the amount of points that you have with that person. All relationships are based on variables. If you master variables, you can have a relationship system. Correct. And that also goes in for this, where reward for each is extra cutscenes and unlocking items. And this is something else that we're also going to talk about later on, which is the payoff. The payoff for doing these systems, or whether or not you decide to have them. And true, it's definitely variables. Stardew Valley is definitely one of my favorite ones. I will say Sebastian, I've romanced all of the characters that you can at least once. And I gotta say, I feel for Sebastian, but at the same time, I find it funny that most people forget about Maru. And honestly, that's Maru's own doing. For rich beginners, I would recommend Casper Gaming Reputations plugin for MZ. That's all I have to say. Oh, I see how it is. Gonna plug your thing. Okay, I see how it is. No, I'm joking. But yeah, there is the whole plugins for RPG Maker, and then there's the whole making your own. This is pretty much about the concepts and balancing of things. So, if we're going to include a relationship system in your game, what kind are we doing? And let's also remember, when it comes to part of the whole doing the relationships in Stardew Valley, if you're married, you get spouse benefits, which is normally a daily gift, or every other day you get a gift, and maybe some extra dialogue, and sometimes they'll do chores around the farm for you so you don't have to. The next one is Mass Effect, which is another similar but very different, in my opinion, kind of relationship system, because a lot of it based off of these two things. If you're being Renegade or if you're being Paragon. Forgot the word for a second. But yeah, a lot of this is actually based upon actions and morality. When you're doing quests, what choices you make during those quests, as well as the morality that you have as a character if you have more points in Renegade or more points in Paragon. This is very, very based throughout the entire trilogy of the games. And part of the reasons why I say I will not fuck you actually is because, jokingly, but at the same time seriously, she is the easiest one to bed. All you have to do is not be mean to her and save her instead of the other guy in the first game, and she will immediately drop trouser for you, and it's very disappointing. The reward is awkward nudie, maybe a dialogue or two, and that's kind of it. And then some NPCs need a certain level of loyalty points. Case in point, Rex, also in Mass Effect 1. If you don't have enough loyalty points for him before a certain story critical mission, he will die. Either by your hand, by another person's hand, or so on. But essentially, because he doesn't trust you enough, he doesn't have enough loyalty with you, he doesn't believe you will actually help him. Which I think is very good and very interesting in the sense that you have to actually build a level of respect and loyalty and relationship with the character before they just go and be like, oh, I can't trust you because you're not going to do this for me at all. Or, oh yeah, I'm totally going to trust you even though I just met you like 5 days ago. I trust you with the entire survival of my species. Shout out to BioWare, Mass Effect developers who are based in Canada, Edmonton, the Canadian capital of gaming. I miss good old BioWare games. And I mean like the old ones, like KOTOR. Yeah. So let's talk about the payoff. The payoff is this. The idea of what you get in return for doing the relationships with the characters. Because, like I guess said, not every game needs it, and if the game does include it, what's the payoff? Is the payoff story advancement or extra content? Story advancement being it's like it's part of the quest or part of the main story. You have to romance somebody, or you have to build up a relationship through loyalty with someone in order to progress the main story, or if changing things or choosing someone differently does change the story, but you still have to choose somebody. And the extra content is, extra side quests or a whole new area unlocked, things like that. Is that the payoff for progressing with a relationship with someone? And again, this doesn't have to be romance or dating or anything like that. It could just be friendship, loyalty, etc. Any kind of relationship and building up that system. What is the payoff? A game like Thousand Arms actually had a good bit of this, where the story advancement was tied with dating. You had to date multiple girls, or at least take them out on dates, make them happy for key critical parts of this game, but also you got a little bit of extra content in the sense of all the mini games, the date scenes, and so on. And let's not forget the payoff that a lot of gamers actually care about: skills, abilities, equipments, or cosmetics. In Thousand Arms, you actually got primarily equipment and or cosmetics, in the sense that when you dated one of the girls, you raised her spiritual power. So when you used her with blacksmithing to create or enhance a weapon, you not only increased the stats of the weapon, you changed the cosmetic look of the weapon as you changed what element it was aligned to. For those of you who don't know, Thousand Arms is one of my favorite games ever, and it's from Atlas, the people who made Persona. and it's a PS1 classic. But if you want a hard copy of it, it's going to be like $150 off of eBay, because good luck. So I'm not saying you should play it through illegitimate means. All I'm saying is good luck finding a legitimate copy, because again, it's a bit of an under radar, very old kind of game. But the payoff, like I said, was you got equipment and cosmetics from doing the dating and relationship things and going along with the girls. And it was all very corny and campy, but that was part of the fun. Pokemon had a similar thing in the sense of the friendship moves return in frustration. So, friendship moves, they had the whole, if you did return, it was friendship divided by 2.5. That equals the amount of power or damage it potentially could do. And frustration was very similar in the sense that it was more based upon like how pissed the Pokemon is with you. Ads incoming in a minute 30, by the way. I'm big on more intrinsic focused payoffs for these sorts of mechanics rather than extrinsic ones. Yeah, and again, like I said, there are multiple payoffs, such as witty dialogue and awkward nudity. So it really depends on like what you are willing to give your players and what the players are seeking when it comes to the payoff. Because if it's witty dialogue, hey, that's just every Dragon Age, let's be honest. Every Dragon Age, all of them, it's a declining return, but they all just give witty dialogue and an awkward nudity, maybe some very awkward grunts to a black screen. That's it. It's kind of off-putting for someone like me, to be honest. But that's the payoff in a lot of games where the romance is secondary, and that's what I mean by secondary. It's there, but it's not very important to the rest of the game or to the story. For Pokemon, extrinsic stat stuff does make sense narratively and mechanically. Yes. Nope. Ad is starting probably within the next 30 seconds, everybody. So I will hold for a moment, because I believe those should be playing. And then once everyone's back from the ads, because I thought I set them to not play as often. I guess I was wrong. Oh. Oh boy. And everyone should be back from the ads probably within about 20 seconds. So let's see. Ow. No. Parmless. Parmless. Alright, everyone should be coming back from the ads. Alright. So, Parmless stated, thank you for the redeem, by the way, some games treat relationship quests like visual novels. Yes, I'm guessing that's what you mean by VNs, but yes, visual novels, in the sense that the visual, or rather the whole section of the relationship or romance or so on, is much more dialogue heavy, and it's story heavy, but it's not really important to the rest of the game. So, like I said, as far as the payoff in regards to what you're offering the player and what the player is looking for, it really, really depends overall what you are wanting to offer the player and what the player is seeking. So there's story advancement, where it's critical to the story of the game. Extra content, where it is extra, it's added, it's more than what they currently have. So again, simple as the name says. So it's like extra quests, or certain quests only advance or come available because you took a certain route. There's skills, abilities, equipment, and or cosmetics, which I'd also point out there's also the game which is the Tales of series, where they have the bonding mechanic, where what was it? If you increase the bond with a character, you unlocked more. Is it mystic arts or something like that? Some sort of special attack or special ability you unlocked by having more of a bond with them. So essentially, more loyalty points with them. Incoming, I thought I turned you off because you're supposed to go every 20 minutes and you failed. So I'm just gonna delete that timer. One day I'll get that timer fixed. Right. So how about making it not suck? How can we make this mechanic, the idea of relationship mechanics, not suck? And I mean, again, it doesn't have to be a romance. It could be just loyalty, friendship, a good reputation or stuff like that. Well, one is dynamic relationships. NPC 1 kind of hates NPC 2, so they don't really work together at all, ever at all. That kind of thing. So that's something that's possible, and you should definitely keep in mind. The other one is making it not feel like a chore. Make the extra content, or make the whole having to go through it if it is required, or if it's optional, to where it's enjoyable purely based upon the idea of it's not a chore. It doesn't feel like a chore having to do it. Because even if, again, this goes back to the whole cynical opening about relationships, you're going to be doing some mundane stuff with each other, because that's just how life is. It's like sometimes you're going to actually be doing chores, like cleaning or cooking or something like that together, or for each other, and you don't mind it as much because you love the person you're with, hopefully. So think of like that when you are trying to design something like this. If you need to do certain quests in order to progress a romantic subplot or a loyalty checkpoint with a character, then make the quests better, or with better writing. Make the quests have better writing, because it is primarily the presentation of the mechanic that also helps it not suck. The better it is presented to the player, the more enjoyable it becomes. And again, it's not for everybody, but even if it's not for everybody, the players who are willing to sit through it, if they don't feel like they are essentially having teeth pulled from them, they're going to enjoy it much more. So keep that in mind when it comes to making it not suck. Now let's talk something about the mechanic in regards to how it can be done. So interactions that are just more than just did we talk. Did I gotta go up to the NPC and hit A on them a bunch? Because let's face it, we sometimes do that in games. We'll go up and just talk to the NPC a lot, or as much as we can, and then we run off, and then the next day in the game, we go and do it again. I'm guilty of this in Stardew Valley, because there's some characters I don't like interacting with, but I at least want the items that I get from them for, raising enough friendship points with them. I don't like Haley. I don't like Demetrius. But I'll talk to them, just so that way I can, get the benefits of raising enough points with them. It's as simple as that. But what about dynamic in the sense of raising friendship with one lowers with another? So this is, again, the whole idea of, hey, NPC 1 and NPC 2 don't get along at all. Ooh, water. NPC 1 and NPC 2 don't get along at all. They argue, they fight. If it wasn't for the fact that they both have a similar goal, and the player was there, they'd probably kill each other. So when the player chooses to talk to one more than the other, it negatively impacts their relationship with them. So think of them like jealous rivals or jealous lovers or something like that. Doesn't matter, but the idea of, hey, every time I talk with NPC 1, NPC 2 hates me a little bit because they think that I'm betraying them or that I don't value them as much or something like that. And you could definitely use this later on in the game to where one of the NPCs betrays you purely because they think you sided more with the other person. So again, mechanical thoughts for including something like this. And is there a quantifiable return? This again goes back to the whole payoff. Is there a quantifiable return in the form of content, equipment, ability, skills, something combat related if it's a combat related type of game, or is there a payoff in the regards to something that would make the neurons activate in your brain to where you're like, ooh, boobies, or something like that? Or you get what I'm saying. Is there a quantifiable return for going through the mechanic? I said click, thank you. Is the progress checkpointed or tied with the main story? That's also something else to think about. Now, back when I mentioned Stardew Valley, its progress is checkpointed in the sense that when you get to a certain level of friendship with a character, you are presented with a cutscene. That cutscene has an impact most of the time as to whether or not your friendship will increase or decrease based upon your response in that cutscene. And it's very important to note that depending on the cutscene, you can lose either some or a lot of friendship points. Case in point would be the character Penny in Stardew Valley. There's a scene where they have, kids with them as they're teaching the two kids, and they're out in the forest, and they ask you how you feel about children. If you say that you don't like kids, you immediately lose all friendship points with her. And I think that's like 4 hearts or 6 hearts event with her, which means you have put a lot of time and effort into building up that friendship with her, and you immediately reset it to 0 by giving that response. So that is a sense of being checkpointed. Now, with it being tied with the main story, that's a little different. That is, again, more closer to, hey, does choosing one NPC over another have an impact on the story as far as do cutscenes change? Does dialogue change? Does an ending change? Does who I choose have an impact on the ending? Case in point would be actually, again, Mass Effect. Again, depending on how well your relationship is with certain characters will determine if they are actually even alive at the end of the series, because you may have accidentally sent them off on a suicide mission, or you might not have done the right quests or checkpoints in order to have a good repertoire with them, so they just abandon you. Hey Sai, welcome. Another example would be Witcher 3. Witcher 3 has many characters that have their fates told to you at the end, depending on how you handled their quests. So, again, that is another way of presenting the mechanic and how it impacts the overall story. So, again, is the progress checkpointed or tied with the main story? There also is, with the whole tying in the main story, is I can't progress with this character's side quest or build up more friendship points with this character until I reach a certain chapter in the game. Like, oh, you can only build up like 2 hearts with them up in the first chapter, and then it's locked until a certain progress point is met in the main story. Then, and that might be like later in chapter 2 or chapter 3, and then you can build up friendship points with them more. That is another way of doing the checkpointing, to where you can't just rush and build up points with one character without even leaving the main town. Love the original Mass Effect trilogy. Yes, I liked Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2. I liked Mass Effect 1 more than I liked 2, but I liked Mass Effect 1 and I liked Mass Effect 2. I didn't really like Mass Effect 3. Yes, it's part of the whole being burned by the ending, but I liked a lot about Mass Effect in general. I'm very big into the whole space thing in regards to, like, I like Star Trek and Star Wars. It's a shame we rarely very get good Star Wars games or Star Trek games, but I liked a lot of the Star Trek shows, so those did impact how I do a lot of writing. Big space guy as well, yeah. Everyone likes Mass Effect 1 more than the others. I can't imagine as to why. So the next one is there a right choice when it comes to this mechanic and its impact? Because, again, going back to The Witcher 3, in a sense, there is a right choice with some of these, because it could determine how things end. Ooh, more water. So, again, with the whole how it might end, or how certain NPCs might help you or might not help you based upon your loyalty points, but you have to also think about from a dev's perspective, do you consider one choice for choosing one particular NPC over another or something like that as the right choice? Do you see it as, oh yeah, choosing NPC 2 over NPC 1, that's the right choice. So if you choose NPC 2, you're going to get the better ending for your character, versus NPC 1, you might get a slightly better ending, or a slightly worse ending. Still a good ending, but not as much. How overt the progress / loyalty points are shown is a huge part too. Telltale shoves it in your face. Persona shows notes upon a decision made. Stardew allows you to see hearts in a menu. Chrono Trigger shows nothing in regards to how it will affect the trial scene. Correct. This is a mechanic that's been around for a good long while. And the part of the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because of, well, let's face it, there's a lot of games out there, especially in this hobby scene of ours, where they don't implement it or use it as well as they could. So they essentially just have a rough idea of, oh yeah, you could totally build up, relationship points with this person. It's super easy, and all you got to do is talk to them a bunch, or yeah. Or it's like, oh yeah, these choices will definitely have an impact. Here's a good example. Speaking of Telltale games, how about Fallout? Fallout 4 is like, nobody liked that. Everybody loved that. Or, Kate loves something, but Piper hates it, or something like that. And it's like, it's there in Fallout 4. It's not very well done. Because, again, the whole following down the path of doing the side quests and doing the stuff for romancing one of the characters or building up a good enough relationship with one of the characters, there's no real payoff other than the extra content, and the extra content's not even that great. And to me, that's annoying. As much as I like the Fallout series, I feel like Fallout 4 was terribly written when it came to its side content and chunks of its main content. But the side content in particular in regards to your relationship with your companions, be it Piper, McCree, or not McCree, McGreedy, or Kate, or Hancock, or so on. Their side quests are boring. And they're just terrible. I'd prefer to lean more towards Chrono Trigger hidden method. Makes all decisions feel weighty because they might, but they might not. And you don't even know what actually even counts as a decision. Correct. Now, I liked Fallout 3 in New Vegas significantly more. Right. A lot of people like 3 in New Vegas more, especially in New Vegas, because it was an actual good Fallout game. Gods know we rarely get those. But yeah, so when it comes to the idea of making a right choice in the game, you have to think, is you as the developer trying to say you should choose this character over another because that's the right choice, or that you feel that's the right choice even though your players might feel differently? Again, going back to Witcher 3, you can actually decide kind of like who are you going to follow a romance more with. Is it going to be Yennefer or Triss? And depending on which one you choose depends on the kind of ending that you get. And there are so many guides out there telling you how to get the best ending with Yennefer, more than there are guides of how to get the best ending with Triss. So, objectively speaking, Yennefer is the better option in regards to, an ending. So, it also goes into the fact of, if you make a sequel, and I mean like a direct sequel to your game, such as Witchers 1, 2, and 3, is the previous decision or previous romance impacting on the current one? If so, then what was the right choice? New Vegas handles companions and factions the best by far. Correct. And factions is another thing that unfortunately I didn't make a slide for, now that I think about it. But factions is also a very important thing when it comes to this mechanic, because it's pretty much the same thing. Instead of having an actual one NPC, you just have a bunch of NPCs that have a simple tag on them, and that tag says, "Are you aligned with me?" If yes, cool, I am not stabbing you. If no, I am stabbing you. That's pretty much what factions are. It's pretty much the same thing, it's just an extra tag added on to multiple characters versus one character. So, factions or single character relationship points and so on matters not. It is all the same. And someone messaged me. Who did you message me and why? There's only one person who's allowed to message me right now. Well, two people, but still. It was the one person who was allowed to message me. Ads coming in about a minute 30, everybody. So let's move along. So let's talk about the dynamic panic. The dynamic panic is the idea of having dynamic relationships. It prevents the Mary Sue main character. Fuck you, Kirito. Because, let's face it, when it comes to the idea of, hey, one character doesn't like you because you spent too much time with another character, makes sense. It exists in reality. It should exist in these games because, let's face it, if your main character, your character that you're playing as, is loved by every person that they encounter, either immediately or after just doing a few quests, it's like, oh yeah, I'll forget my blood feud with that character over there because you're just that damn charming. Then no, that's poorly written. I hate that. I hate that so much. And the idea of having dynamic relationships helps curb away from that. You should let characters argue. It's called drama. It's good. It's good writing. So again, more of the idea, if you speak more with NPC 1 than NPC 2, either out of jealousy or dislike, you will lose points with you. Relationship level, loyalty, friendship, etc. impacts both minor and major story beats. So this is also another thing. If having a certain level of points with a... Ooh, ads. I'll wait for you. I'll wait for you. Oh, I should stop singing. I forgot that I'm terrible at singing. Alright. It says about... I should probably drink some water. That way I keep myself. Alright, it says ads should be ending for everybody. So I'm just going to go ahead and click that off. Alrighty. Everyone should be back. But yeah, relationship level impacting both minor and major story beats. That should also be part of the payoff, but also is part of the whole dynamic panic kind of thing. The whole dynamic relationships of NPCs either not helping you at all or changing sides depending. This could and should be used to impact both minor and major story beats. It's more fun if it's both. It could only be one. It could, in most cases, a lot of them use it only for minor story beats. To where it's like, oh, this NPC dropped out because of your relationship with this one. Don't worry, we've got this other one to take their place, and they fill pretty much the same role. I feel like that shouldn't happen as much. Oh, what? Huh. That is not nearly as loud as that needs to be. But yes, need a game where you can be part of a blood feud. That actually sounds kind of awesome. Should probably work on that. Meanwhile, what is the audio level for that? Yeah, we're gonna chop that up to, it's only at 50%. Let's chop that up to 80%. Actually, I think that's the wrong one. I think I chopped the wrong one up to 50%. Here we go. There we go. Save. Alright. That should be better in the future. Hey, Rim. Thanks for the hydrate. Witcher 2 fits. Yeah. Again, the whole, I want to cause a blood feud. Hi, Rim. I hope your evening is going well. But yeah, as far as the idea of being in a game where you cause or are part of a blood feud, that is definitely something that a dynamic panic would be a part of. In the sense, again, you know, you either are part of a minor or major story beat because of your choices. So, and again, story beats are like those main plot points or main points that the story overall encounters or does. So, if you're going to have that be impacting minor beats, it's good to have like multiple minor beats, so that way it's like throughout. But if it's going to be both minor and major story beats, you're going to have like the multi-endings nonsense of like, I think it was Shadow the Hedgehog or Shadow the Hedgehog 2, whichever one it was, where you're like going around with a gun and like fighting gun and aliens and stuff. Oop, I got another message. Why are people messaging me? Alright, sorry about that. People were messaging me and I wanted to make sure I appropriately responded. Alright, on to the next one. Which again, going to with more of the idea of dynamics. If dynamic panic, where you don't want to lose either character because they might have some benefits or so on, which is NPC 1 and NPC 2 work together less effectively due to their relationship than NPC 1 and NPC 3 or NPC 2 and NPC 3 reflect in buffs or reflect in builds or in debuffs. And I'm referencing Valkyria Chronicles. Valkyria Chronicles, you can get it on Steam, the first one. I don't know where the rest of them fucking are, but I know the first one is at least on Steam. It's a really good game, and it actually has mechanics in the game where if you're one of your soldiers is near another soldier that they don't like or they don't get along with because either they hate guys or they hate girls or they are a lone wolf or they hate a particular person's race, stuff like that, then they will actively perform worse in the sense of they'll do less damage or they might miss because their spread is much higher with their guns or stuff like that. That is the idea of a dynamic relationship as well, is that because they don't work well together for whatever the reason, even if they have very similar or complementary builds, but their relationship with each other is so terrible that it actively affects their performance. It causes an extra layer of strategy where you as the player would have to find a better means of substituting that or finding a means of working with it. Maybe you can still have them both in the same battle, just not have them near each other. I like Valkyria Chronicles 1 and 4, which are on Steam, but not 2 or 3. That's stupid. Why is 2 and 3 not on Steam? You know what? Whatever. I believe, yeah. Okay, so that is the end of the slides, because that's pretty much all that I had written for the idea of going through essentially the relationship mechanics. Again, going with the idea of that there being benefits based upon either the whole let's go back. Yeah, let's go back to just the payoff. So the payoffs of, you know, story advancement, extra content, skills, abilities, equipment, or cosmetics, witty dialogue, and maybe an awkward nudie. things like that. So having payoffs like that is how you entice players in order to participate in the mechanic, but at the same time, you have to think, is the amount of work going into the mechanic that you are offering, or is worth the payoff that you're offering? Is it like 1 or 2 quests, or is it like this is going to be a long haul kind of thing, and you might get a worthwhile payoff at the end? An intrinsic benefit for an extrinsic debuff is pretty interesting too. Most used for good guy routes. Yeah. But I gotta say, when it comes down to it, the idea of characters not working well together is always a good point in story-driven games. And I like that story-driven, because again, not every game needs these mechanics, but it's always good to have them in story-driven, because it adds and fleshes them out more. But yeah, do we have any questions or examples that you yourselves have in regards to games or moments where relationships were kind of a thing in the game and you feel like it was done well or was done poorly? So I have to point out, there's a lot of them out there. Like every Persona game has them. Heck, even Skyrim has them, and in Skyrim, the only benefit to actually having a spouse or a companion with you is that they get to carry your stuff and get in the way of your shots. That's pretty much it. Let me think what else. What's another game that uses a lot of relationship mechanics? Golly, there's a whole bunch of them now that I think about it. Because when I think about like all of the games that I've played, which there's too many in my opinion, but all the games that I've played, having a mechanic where your relationship with another character is not paramount, but it's definitely very important. Harvest Moon, yeah, that pretty much. I just like the whole trade 1,000 blueberries for love mechanic, but I think it can work when it's spliced in with other aspects that boost loyalty points. Right, so it's more of that whole dialogue and gift, or quests and gifts. Like I said, when it came to Stardew Valley versus Mass Effect, Stardew Valley is dialogue and gifts, and Mass Effect is actions and morality. I'm trying to think. Golly. Come on, Ian. You've played like a few 100,000 games. Which ones are the ones that have relationship things that are important? Does Divinity have it? I can't remember. Baldur's Gate, definitely. Your relationship with your companions can progress their own quests, as well as impact how their quests turn out. For instance, Asterion, if you don't have enough points with him, when you go through his whole vampire shtick, you might not be able to convince him or trust him to not become an ascended vampire. Same with Shadowheart and going through the trials. My favorite is when your choices are tracked throughout your playthrough and it affects how people feel about you and what happens. The trial scene from Chrono Trigger is a good example, but I'm blanking on others. I know, because it's very rarely used so well that it sticks in your mind. And that's also another thing that I wanted to talk about when it comes to all these different mechanics, is that some of them exist, it's just they're so improperly or underused that we don't really think about them anymore. Went through the trials without Shadowheart and she left. Yeah. Exactly, though. It's like the idea of like, hey, you know, this was my thing that I was supposed to be here for, and you went through without me, so fuck you, I guess. Let me think. I know, was it the newest Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has a bit of a relationship mechanic in it, but honestly, I don't know if it does anything yet. I haven't finished it. I'm still playing it. But I don't know if it actually does anything for you or in the game or in story-wise yet, because I haven't noticed any major differences or like any checks of, oh hey, you need to be of this level relationship with Tifa or with Aerith or with Barrett, which I guess is also another thing in the sense of the whole idea of, as Plexi was saying, whether the game tells you or not. Because if the game tells you, oh hey, you need a higher friendship with this character, you might save scum and like load back to a previous save to go do a whole bunch of other shit before going back to do that quest again. Shard is very clearly the intended main character of Baldur's Gate 3. I don't know. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I guess you're right with that, because she does have the artifact that kind of sets everything off. I wouldn't say that she's quite fully the main character, but she is definitely the linchpin of the whole thing. God, now it bothers me. It's like, what other games actually had good relationship mechanics in it that... Monster Hunter didn't have shit. But then again, Monster Hunter was mostly about just fighting monsters. My time at Portia, Stardew Valley, and Harvest Moon are all practically the same game, just different coats of paint. Potion Permit's kind of the same. Yeah, unfortunately, this is one of those things that the mechanic is not used as much or as well as it could be, unless you look at very specific RPGs. Then it's very, very rampant throughout. But that being said, as far as other possible payoffs, what do you think could be other payoffs for doing a whole relationship system? Because again, at the moment, the main things that I have is that when it comes to the payoff for building up enough friendship points, loyalty points, romancing, or what have you, is story advancement, extra content, skills, abilities, equipment, or cosmetics, witty dialogue, and maybe an awkward nudie. That last one is very, very much the only thing that happens in BioWare games for the most part. It's like BioWare doesn't want to do anything other than have witty dialogue and an awkward nudie. They don't want to actually make it beneficial for having a significant other in the game or something like that. The Persona 5 has a neat extrinsic rewards, and Persona 3 has interesting ways of getting loyalty points. Gotta leave it up to those guys. They know how to make some weird games. I will say that. Because I want to say... No. The Persona series is one of those games that I haven't really played that much of, and I do need to go and play them. But the problem is there's so many of them, so it's very... I'm very concerned about getting into them. I hear they're great. I always hear good things about them. But... I don't know. I put a lot of time into Final Fantasy. Do I really want to put more time into something else? No, that being said, let me think. Dragon Age is very good at allowing NPC characters to grow in relationship with each other depending on how close your relationship is with them. Yeah, yes-ish. Yes, but ish. The reason being is because Dragon Age and Mass Effect suffer from a key flaw, and that is the Mary Sue. Your character, and again, I like Dragon Age. I like Dragon Age Origins. Not a very well optimized game, but I like it. I like Mass Effect. But your character is a Mary Sue in those games. Because every main NPC that you encounter that has the potential of becoming a party member likes you almost immediately, or very easily likes you. If I all have to do is get you to be on my side to do 2 quests, and then you're going to charge into battle to death for me, regardless of what we're going against, then you need psychiatric help. Yes, they all kind of wait on your decision, then pair off accordingly. Right? It's not fun. It's not very well written. Also, it feels tacked on and not fully explored. It could have been done better, I guess is the way I'm saying it. And again, like I said, when it comes to a lot of the other stuff, I guess it's my complaint that I want more. I want more meat and potatoes. I'm a meat and potatoes kind of guy, you know, potatoes. Cook them, smash them, stick them in a stew. Yeah, it's quite wish fulfillment heavy, yes. It's the same with a lot of other dialogue, or not dialogue, a lot of other things, because again, fuck you, Kirito, in the sense of Sword Art Online. Oh, I'm a mysterious guy with a black jacket and 2 swords, and all the women that I encounter fall in love with me after they see how awesome I am. It's like, really? Really? That's what you're going with? Like, I don't like Naruto. And even it's heavy on the wish fulfillment in the sense of, oh, everyone hates me until I start kicking so much ass, then everyone loves me. Because by the end of the Naruto series, who hates Naruto? If they do hate him, they're probably dead. Or they're one of the people that he has actively fought against. But everyone else is like, no! He's the greatest. Oh, I've always been his big fan. I was just afraid. Bunch of bullshit, in my opinion. But it is what it is. What else? Yeah, okay. That being said, do we have any questions, concerns, comments, or any thoughts upon the subject or the idea of the relationship mechanic, of how to make it better, how to make it well presented, or how it could impact your game? Ads coming in probably about 30 to 40 seconds, by the way, everyone. Oh, or right now. Alright, everyone should be coming back within 10 seconds. Alright. Everyone should be coming back now. Welcome back, everybody. Let's see, Cychronic says, I usually skip it, but I like it where it affects the ending in some way, but not in a way that you get a good ending or bad ending, but just a different based on what happened, what everyone went through together. Yes. Because, like, okay, Fallout New Vegas, since we mentioned that earlier, in the sense of relationships, because not only with your companions, but also with the factions. Because, again, this whole thing also applies to factions. Fallout New Vegas, in the end, you've got 3 options. No matter what you choose, you only have 3 options. It'll always be one of these 3 endings. Either you side with Caesar, or Caesar, which is the proper way of saying it, I guess, but either you side with the Legion, you side with the NCR, or you go with an independent Free Vegas. Those are the only 3 options that you have. It's 1, 2, or 3. There's no fourth, there's no weird mix, there's nothing. The only difference between the 3 factions is who you get to help. For Kaisar, you want to get rid of the boomers because they're probably going to be a problem. For the Independent, you want to get rid of the boomers because they might be a problem. For the NCR, you want to side with the boomers because they could definitely be a super big help. You just need to convince them to get on your side. You know, things like that. So, with that being said, the idea is you only have 3 endings, and the only variations between them is who you got to convince, or who you convinced to be at your side for that end. That is an interesting and useful way of doing things as far as a payoff in the end. And again, it's all about the payoffs of either immediate or in the end. There must be a payoff. There must be a payoff of some kind, because if there's no payoff for you going through all of that, then what's the point of going through it? What's the point of me just not mashing A through the whole thing and not paying attention and not caring about some character's 15-page dialogue backstory about how their dad used to throw clams at them and now they hate clams? You know, I don't know. But that's my point. It's if it is not presented well and there is no good payoff, then there is no point in doing it. So, factions is also a good way of doing the whole relationship thing because it allows you to essentially also set a grander scale, but not only story-wise, but also gameplay-wise, in the sense that, well, again, in New Vegas, if your reputation with a faction is too low, then that whole faction becomes hostile to you immediately, and they will attack you on sight, with no hopes of you essentially convincing them otherwise. So, with that, let's move on to tonight's game. So, give me a moment to get that sorted. Doop 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 doop. But yeah, I plan on doing more of these dev talks in the future, where I will talk about the other mechanics. And like I said earlier, Sai, you likely missed it, but I am open to the idea of doing these dev talks either here, solo, or also on the RTP. I just need to have an idea as to what to be talking about and when. As far as the next one, if I don't hear yay or nay, one way or the other. Give me that. Thank you. I am thinking about tackling the whole idea of passive versus attentive turns. I just realized everyone is slightly floaty. Here we go. Alright, as far as tonight's game, we will continue on with Leyline Chronicles, as that was what we were supposed to be doing for Mondays. But yeah, if you guys ever want to come up with or want me to cover another mechanic, because at the moment I've got passive versus attentive turn-based, spell and skill progressions, social interactions, stat allocations, craftings, class systems, grinding, stats and boost items, stat boosting items and equipment, side quests, balancing for side quests, exploration, balancing action and story, essentially how to not be too wordy or too light, difficulty, and card games. Because these are, of course, things that we see all the fucking time when it comes to RPG Maker games.